What happens when the very people and places meant to protect you become the source of your deepest wounds? In this powerful and moving episode, Olivia shares her story of growing up in a strict religious household where silence, shame, and abuse shaped her earliest understanding of herself and her body. Now a behavioral specialist and teaching family model consultant at the Boys and Girls Club, home of North Carolina and Lake Waccamaw, Olivia supports both foster youth and the adults who serve them. She works directly with students, many carrying deep emotional scars, and trains educators to create safe, trauma-informed relationships using a relational model designed to foster healing and trust. Content warning: this episode includes discussions of abuse and trauma. Please listen with care. Olivia's story is a reminder that healing is not only possible, but it can become a path we offer to others. This is episode 75, Healing Through Movement, Olivia's journey from trauma to empowerment. Welcome to Healing with Haley. I'm your coach, Haley Kirk. On this podcast, we dive into ways to heal, embrace, and truly love our lives. Here's my belief. So much of our suffering comes from what we believe. I'm here to help you understand your mind and question those thoughts to start your healing journey. Ready to get started? Let's go. What is up, podcasters? So I am back and I have an amazing guest, Olivia White. She is my friend from the dance scene. And it was so funny. We were talking during a twerk class that I was giving Olivia, and she was just sharing her story with me, and it was so inspiring. It was so inspiring. I had no idea that these things happened to her and that her mission, it was crazy how our missions are aligned in healing and empowering women. And so I just want to give you the mic, so to speak. We are on a Zoom recording, but yeah, let us, if you would, share your passion and where it started and what you're working on right now. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in Johnston County. I did not have the greatest upbringing. Grew up in a very religious, very controlling, just very unsafe environment. And then when I left home when I was about 17, and that really inspired everything that I wanted to do. Like everything from when I was a child, on days that I couldn't help myself, I like to help others. So from a young age, I really enjoyed doing that. And I grew up with a lot of other kids that were also going through hard things. And I always had just the right thing to say. Because even if I didn't have a solution, it just got them through one more day. And that was something that was really inspiring for me. And then as I got older, I started noticing, like, what is it that I have that all these other kids don't? Like the people that are going to drugs, going to alcohol, committing suicide, getting into gangs, getting pregnant. Like, what am I doing right that they're not even considering? And a lot of that was like, okay, well, I keep myself so busy that I don't even have time to do all that stuff. I was playing soccer. I was in scouts. I volunteered all the time. I was going to college and high school all at the same time. And then I was also working full time. So it was just like, I don't even have time to think about it. And then that just kind of trickled in as like I started really studying that as I got older, just to kind of keep my head above water. And then over the years, I went from someone who needed help and needed the saving to someone who saves others. And that's really exciting. I'm now a behavioral specialist at a charter school for foster care kids in Lake Waccamaw. I actually work for the Boys and Girls Homes in North Carolina.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. That's been very, very fulfilling. While I'm at that role, I'm also the teaching family model consultant there. So that means that I teach the teaching family model to both the students and then also to their teachers. That way, as the teachers learn how to use the model, it actually improves their relationship with the students.
Whoa. That is amazing. That's so amazing. So let's backtrack for a moment. Because like you and I shared together, for those of my audiences that don't know, I graduated in social work, and I did a lot of volunteering as well for the Children's Justice Center. For me, it was like, for me, it's always been, I just have a really soft spot for kids and children. And if they're suffering, that just makes my heart break. And so I would be a mentor for kids who had experienced some kind of abuse. I didn't have to know about it, actually, which I thought was kind of cool. Like, I didn't know what happened to them, just that something happened to them. They needed a healthy mentor. And so I built a friendship with them for 6 months. And I did that for like a year and a half. It was really cool. But in that training that I got, one of the signs of trauma actually is that being busy, that kind of perfectionist mindset. So you mentioned that was kind of like, what was I doing different as like a solution? Do you still believe that now?
I try and find a little bit more of a balance. I definitely did that through probably till I finished my bachelor's degree. Like when I think back, when I lived here before, so I grew up in Johnston County, lived there for about 5 years, moved to Brunswick County, which is like the beach area of North Carolina, lived there for 5 years. Then I moved back to Johnston County for like middle school, high school, and my associates. And then I moved back to Brunswick County, like the beach area, as soon as I turned 18. Lived there for a couple years, moved to Maryland a couple years, and now I'm back. Uh, it's one of those things that when I was living here before, I was going to school online, finishing my bachelor's degree. And then I was also working 70 hours a week, just trying to get by, pay all my bills, and still like pay for school. I was so adamant that I did not want to graduate with a ton of debt. And it was one of those things that I wasn't consciously or purposefully trying to stay busy to try and survive everything. It was mostly just trying to adult, honestly. But then when I look back, it's one of the main reasons that I got diagnosed with the autoimmune disorders that I do, that I have. They presented so much faster, so much younger because of the amount of stress and lack of sleep I was under during that time of finishing my bachelor's. So that is definitely something that once I got diagnosed, that was a rude awakening to really look at the way that I live my life, how I keep myself busy, and the type of self-care that I do. Because all the hobbies that I've always had them, but I really had to take a step back and really focus on the therapeutic side of it and find that balance with how I spend my time.
So you mentioned that you recognize that there was a lot of you in college, at least, where in retrospect you were like, oh wow, I was trying to adult. But what about, you mentioned that even in middle school, high school, that you were, all these sports, athletics, volunteers, scouts, and even working. Do you think those were also ways that you were trying to cope with all the trauma that you'd experienced?
So it's kind of funny to really look back and look at it. The type of parenting that I was under, you had to earn love and affection. You had to earn that approval. Like even just to be considered like a daughter or someone that they would even like claim in the sense, you had to be a certain level of perfect, especially with my dad. Like I was on a pedestal and my brother could never even touch it, could never even attain it. And so it was one of those things that it put a lot of pressure on me to be the perfect child. Like even getting straight A's, working all the time, going to school, and still like being in sports and volunteering and scouts. It was still never, ever good enough. And so that was something that it was ingrained in me so young to be constantly doing all these different things to earn that love and approval. But then as I got older, it was one of those things that it turned into a trauma response or like a survival method because I didn't know any other way to live. And that's where I had to slowly unlearn that. And then as I got older, I was like, okay, well, I have to find that balance between unlearning it and still getting all of the things done. Like no one taught me how to be an adult. I just had to figure it out. So that was a tricky balance to really find. And then as I got older, I was like, okay, I've survived the adulting part, but I'm clearly not got a hold on the balance part because I'm still tired all the time. I'm getting sicker and sicker. And it was to the point where I think By the end of 2023, I had lost 50 pounds in 4 months. Super, super pale. I had lost all my muscle mass. I went from someone who used to hike and rock climb and dance all the time to I could barely even get out of bed or even walk my dog without being in immense pain. So it was one of those things that then there was also so much inflammation in my body that I couldn't eat hardly anything. My immune system was attacking everything. So it was one of those things where I had to really analyze every single part of my life and figure out what could I change or what did I need to modify. And I had to slowly add my hobbies back until now I can do all those things again. But for a while, it was very, very slow. And I had to really modify and accommodate for everything.
Wow. So it sounds like you went through a physical healing first, and
Yeah.
then maybe it turned into the mental emotional.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those things that once I turned 18, I was so busy just trying to learn how to adult and then unlearn a lot of what I was taught and raised under. And then I started focusing on like, okay, I don't want to be in this situation forever. Like, I don't want to just be in survival mode. What do I need to do to really get out of that? So I started really studying a lot of therapy techniques, started going back to school, started
How old were you at this age?
probably by the time I was 19, I had already applied for school and already kind of made a plan.
You were
I
studying therapy?
Oh yeah, different therapy techniques is I had already been dancing for many, many years. And I'd started studying different therapy techniques because I couldn't afford therapy myself. So I was reading a lot of self-help books. A lot of my Instagram were all very like inspirational or following different therapists.
Were
Like I was
were you saying your
studying.
parents like listen to those kinds of things or not at all?
Mhm. No, mental illness was non-existent in their minds. Like it was all in my head. Like even when I was a teenager, I had told my mom, I was like, these are my symptoms. This is how I'm feeling all the time. Like, I don't understand what's happening, but life is miserable. And she was like, okay, well, somebody, like, because I was like, well, I think my teacher thinks I'm depressed or anxious. And she was like, that's all in your head. Like, that's not a thing. Like, and just kind of gaslit me through that. And she was like, that's not a thing people actually go through. I was like, but I Googled it and like, that's totally a thing. And she was like, no, it's all in your head. Like, that doesn't happen to you. Like, I don't even know what she said. She just like brushed it off completely. And then my dad, he was so like closed-minded to it that he wouldn't even hear anything. But that was also at the time that one of the main reasons that I was depressed was because he gave me the silent treatment for a year. It was essentially after I was sexually assaulted by my biological brother. I had reported it to my parents, and the way that my parents handled it was my dad gave me the silent treatment for 9 months. My mom pretty much disowned me, and then
You
they,
guys, I have to talk about so those that because this is going to be an audio recording. So Olivia's dog is literally licking and comforting her as she's talking about this traumatic experience that happened to her. God, both of them out there like licking you. That's nuts. That's why
awesome.
I swear dogs are their own healing modality. Like that is crazy. The moment you started to open up about that story, they're giving you all the love. That I had
Yep.
to I had to talk about that. So I'm so sorry. So you said that your father gave you the silent treatment when you reported that your biological brother had sexually assaulted you.
Right. And it was one of those things that instead of trying to get me the help that I needed or trying to get him the help he clearly needed, they just shut me out. Like they essentially grounded me. I couldn't go anywhere but my room into the kitchen. I couldn't go and get like water or food without permission for the first like week and a half after everything happened. They locked me in my room. Like I wasn't allowed to leave. I wasn't allowed to get food unless my mom brought me snacks. And like the only reason that like I was able to get through that is I used to hide snacks under my bed because they would do stuff like that.
So was this their response? So was this like paint the picture for us? Were you
Yeah.
like you are at like you're like, hey, mom and dad, I have to tell you something. Can we talk? What how did
So
that go down?
how that kind of all went down, I was 15. It was on New Year's Day. My biological father had gone hunting for the day after my biological mother specifically told him not to, because she had to be gone for the day and she was like, just spend some time with the kids. Like, you're never home, you're always working, just be home with the kids. Like, it's the one holiday you don't have to work. And he didn't. He went hunting. And I get a text from my brother and he's like, hey, let's go watch a movie upstairs. I was like, I'm already watching a movie downstairs. Like, why? And he was like, just come upstairs. And I didn't think anything of it. So I went upstairs and he immediately came from behind the door and everything went down that way. Eventually, after everything had happened, I was able to escape. Like, he tried to block me from leaving and I had to push him down and leave. And then once I did, like, I didn't even have the thought to like grab shoes. Like, I grabbed pants and I like fell down the stairs trying to put my pants on and then ran out the door. And the whole time my brother was yelling, like, you're going to get in so much trouble, like, you're not allowed to leave. And I did not think of anything but, like, I need to get out of this house. So I, like, swung the door open and I ran. And I ran as fast as I could for as long as I could until I couldn't breathe. And I ran about 6 miles before I finally stopped and cried.
Oh my God.
And somebody that I was going to school with at the time, she was like on a run and she saw me and she was like, what happened? I was like, I can't talk about it. I can't talk to you. Like, I can't even breathe. Like, just go away. Don't even look at me. Like, just go away. And eventually she was like, just sat with me for a second until I calmed down. And I was like nowhere near calm. I was still shaking and crying, but she was like, at least let me call your mom. So then she called my mom from her phone because we live in a very small neighborhood. Everybody knows each other. She calls my mom. My mom comes home from her event thing that she was at and she drives up and she gets out of the car because I eventually like take the phone from her after she calls because my mom called back. She was like, why the hell did you leave the house? Like, you're not allowed to leave the house without permission. I was like, well, something happened. And I was being really vague about it because I didn't know how she was going to react. I knew that the other person was still close by. And she was like, just tell me what happened. Tell me what happened. She kept pressing me. So I finally told her, I was like, this is what he did. And then I ran. Like, I ran until I couldn't breathe. And she was like, I'm on my way. Don't tell anybody. I'll be there soon. And she pulled up, came out, didn't hug me, didn't do anything, just said, get in the car. I was like, I'm not ready to go home. Like, don't take me home. Like, I can't go home right now. She was like, you don't have an option. Get in the car. So we end up going home. She calls my dad and she keeps calling my dad until he finally answers. And he's like pissed because he's hunting. And he has to come home and he's like mad. And she won't tell him what happened. She's just like, you need to come home right now. Something happened and it's really bad. Like, you need to come home. So he comes home and he's like coming from like an hour away. And then she kind of tells him a little bit and he doesn't believe her. And so he makes my brother come down and he makes me come down. He makes me tell every single detail like it's an interrogation in front of him, in front of both my parents. Like, we're sitting on the couch next to each other.
Ooh.
And then he does this cycle for hours where he'll do it where like I'm explaining it in front of both of us. He'll explain it in front of me. He'll send one of us up to our room and then like do the cycle again. And then it was just over and over and over for hours of just replaying every single gory detail of what happened. And almost like the entire night goes by, like it's the next morning and it's finally over. Like, they stop interrogating us. But he takes all of my like devices, like not my iPad, my tablet, my three MP3 players, my radio, my soccer ball, and I had a slide phone at the time, so he took my slide phone too. And then for my brother, he took his tablet and his one MP3 player. My brother had to stay in there for 3 days without food and water. I had to stay in there a week. And after he finally let me out, my mom was the one that was like, you have to let her out. Like, she's not eating anything. Like, she is sleeping all the time because she's just has no energy. And when I come out, he comes up to me and he doesn't say anything. He's just, you can never talk about this with anybody. You can never tell anyone. No one will believe you. And he like slut shamed me for a couple minutes. And then after that, he was like, you're dead to me. You're no longer my daughter. And in that moment, like, I didn't even process anything that was happening. Like, I was just standing there in awe of, like, this is really what he's saying. Like, in some of the worst moments of my life where I actually called my dad for help, not once was he ever, not in that moment, not in my car accident that I had when I was a teenager, not ever was he, are you okay? Or do you feel safe? I love you. I'm proud of you. Or like even hugged me. So that's something that like just vividly in my mind, I'm like, I've never needed a hug from my dad more. And you just stood there and said horrible things to me. And then from that moment on, for 9 months, he would not look at me, talk to me, acknowledge that he even had a daughter. I was not, they canceled my Sweet 16. I wasn't allowed to go play soccer anymore. They made me quit soccer right as I was getting noticed by college scouts and things like that. Um, I wasn't allowed to hang out or tell my best friend. I'm trying to think what else. There were a few other things that were like way less important, but they took music, they took soccer, they wouldn't even let me go for runs. And then on top of that, when I finally was going back to school like the next week, I had to drive me and my biological brother every day, just me and him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the picture.
Whoa. Well, that
Yeah.
is a lot. Um, I just,
It took me a very, very long time to move on from everything of how it was handled. Like the event itself of what happened between my brother was nowhere near even like on my list when I'm like, okay, the traumas that I've gone through, that barely even makes the list compared to the 9 months of how my parents treated me afterwards. Because almost every single day, my mom ended up like slut shaping me. Or like if um, up until that point, like I wasn't even allowed to walk around the house in a sports bra after going for a run. Like it was like crazy, crazy strict. So if my brother had done that to me, I must have done something to encourage him or make him think that I wanted it. So both my parents would say that. And then they forced us to go to church. It was the same thing as like when we were in public. It was like the only time that my dad would even pretend that he had a daughter. And it was because we were at church.
ugh, yeah.
Yeah. So all of the ways that they handled that, that took years and years for me to actually move on from and understand. Like even some things, I'm like, I still can't even wrap my head around it. Because it's just, I don't understand how you would ever treat your own flesh and blood like that.
Man. Yeah, it's so just kind of it's one of those things when you like when you hear it, you're like your breath stops. You're just like, oh my God, like that's horrible, like that's just awful.
Honestly, I didn't even know that I was being abused until I was in high school. And somebody had come to the school and was saying about like how kids at our school had gotten in because of like the rough home life that they have. And I was just like, oh, and I was barely paying attention until I started saying some stuff. And I was like, hmm. And so like for the next like hour at school, I started Googling stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not just being abused, but it's about as bad as it gets. And it was like even just that 1 hour, like that was super eye-opening because I never even heard of the word like child abuse. I was so sheltered and isolated that like all I had ever known was that that was normal. Like I didn't even go to sleepovers all the time or hang out with a lot of other people that I had any idea that other families don't go through this. And then by the time I had known how bad it was just too late. Like I never knew, Nico, never knew when to leave. I ran away 3 times as a teenager. Like I figured out it was abuse when I was about 14 or 15. And I had had a to-go bag under my bed since I was like 12. Just like pair of clothes, snacks, any little thing that like made me feel safe. Like I hid it under my bed. And
Wait, so you had at 12 years old, you had a to-go bag, meaning at 12 years old, you were wanting to run away.
oh yeah, yeah, all the
Wow.
time. For the longest time, like I never made goals until I had actually gotten out of the house because I never thought I would survive that long. Every year, people would ask like, "Oh, well, what do you want to do for your birthday?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And like I genuinely didn't have an answer because I'd never thought I'd make it to that birthday.
Wow. Because because of the because there was that sexual abuse that continued.
It was just so unsafe. So my mother she's one of the most narcissistic people on the planet. And I say that because numerous people who have known her will say the exact same thing. And that's what's wild. Because I'm like, okay, it's not just my biased opinion and from what I've studied. It's like
Yeah.
people who have been through this or studied this are like, oh my gosh, wow. But she was also very emotionally and psychologically abusive. My biological father, he was very physically and verbally abusive. And my mom, anytime that I wouldn't like, she controlled my every breath, my every move, my every thought. And anytime that like I didn't want to share something with her or keep something private or even like did any the slightest thing to make her mad, she'd be so petty. And she would essentially sick my dad on me. And what I mean by that is like the night that I finally left, it was over something really, really small. And I just didn't like, I was super tired and I did not want to share every single detail. She then woke up my father, said a bunch of lies about like what I had done or that I had yelled at her or whatever. Like it was a bunch of stuff. But he comes down furious. And I tell him like we're just going to bed, like whatever. And he comes into my bedroom while my best friend is there and ends up just beating the living crap out of me in front of my best friend. And it was one of those things where like that was all over a lie. Is she was mad and being petty, so she woke him up and then he beats the shit out of me in front of my best friend in the middle of the night. And it's things like that. Like that was just the first time anybody had ever seen that. But she would do stuff like that all the time.
That's so wild. And how old were you at that age?
I ran away when I was 17. So the night that I left was also New Year's Eve. That's where like for years, New Year's Eve was like my dark day. Like I never celebrated it, like because
Yeah.
the body remembers what the mind wants to forget. So even years after everything that had happened after my brother, and then even again after my dad, I would just be in so much physical pain. I would be sick for like a week before New Year's because my body would just be so anxious and replaying every single thing that happened. And then like on New Year's, at different times in the night that things had happened, like I would be in physical pain because my body would be reliving it. And that was so frustrating for me because I would do everything in my power to be around people that made me feel safe, stay calm, stay away from like big crowds, like anything that could possibly trigger me or make it worse. And I
Yeah.
would still be like, my body's like, no, you need to remember this. You need to move through it.
Yeah.
And I just tried to push away, push away, push away.
We all do. Right. Yeah. It's like let's not confront the monster under the bed kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so
So
uncomfortable.
the night that I left, the long story short, which might become the short story long, um, I went over to my boyfriend's house, like my boyfriend at the time, and it was me, my best friend, him, and some of his friends, and we went over to watch the ball drop. My mom said that we had to be back by a certain time,
And
and
you're at 17 at this age.
yes,
Uh-huh.
17. And we had to be back by a certain time, and then we ended up being 4 minutes late. She starts freaking out because we're late and she's like calling me while I'm driving. So my best friend Rosa ends up putting her on speakerphone, and we're like walking through, and I'm like, we're not late on purpose. Like, there's a car accident up here on the road, like all these different things. We'll be there as soon as possible, and like calling her, and we're like, we're not intentionally defying you or anything like that. She acts all understanding till we get home. And my best friend and I are sitting in the car, and I'm just like, something doesn't feel right. Something feels wrong. Like, I'm anxious. Like, something doesn't feel okay. Like, my gut is telling me something's terrible is about to happen. And my best friend is also freaking out because she was like, we're only 4 minutes late, but like, never seen your mom act like this. She went from like furious to like so calm. And so I pinky promised her, and I was like, I've never ever let anything bad happen to you. I never will let anything bad happen to you, and I will always protect you.
That's what your best friend said to you?
That's what I said to her.
Oh,
And then she was like, you've always protected me, and I'm always going to be there for you. Like, one day you're going to get out of this. And we pinky promised because that was like our thing. And little did I know that both of those things were going to come true. That I was going to be the one protecting her from my dad that night, and she was going to be the reason I got out alive. We went inside, and my mom was just interrogating us with all these questions, because then she was talking about like what I must have been doing with my boyfriend to make me so late, all these different things. And me and Rosa are just looking at each other like, we're 4 minutes late, and you just talked with us on the phone the 20-minute drive that we had. And like, we told you everything on the phone. And she's asking us questions and questions and questions, thinking that if you ask us again, we're going to change our answer. And I'm finally like, Mom, like, I'm really tired. Like, I just want to go to bed. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have in the morning. And then we start walking upstairs. I think everything is fine because she didn't even respond. Till next thing I know, she's slammed her bedroom door, which is right next to mine. My dad follows her downstairs. They talk, and then he comes back upstairs into my bedroom, like pounding on the door. And I like answer him, and I'm like really calm. And I ask him like, what's the matter? And he's like, open the door. And so I open the door, and he immediately like, grabs me, pushes me onto the bed, and just starts beating the shit out of me, like so hard. And I'm like on my back, and I was doing jujitsu at the time. And so like, I knew I couldn't hit him back, and I couldn't do anything to leave a mark because then he's going to say that I hit him. But I managed to like kind of sit in a way that he couldn't really hurt me. Because one of the things that he was saying is like, for one, he had his gun on his person. So one of the things that was happening is he kept reaching for it, and I'm like trying to like move his arm in a way that he at least can't reach it. So I was doing that, but then at the same time, Rosa was saying how like he's hurting me and like he's hurting my back, and he's then saying like he's gonna paralyze me. So then from that point, I'm just trying to stay in a position where I don't get hurt. Like, he's twisting my back to where like my legs are twisting one side and the rest of my body's the other side. He's got one arm on my shoulder, another on my leg, and then he's got his like hip into my foot to try and kind of contort it in a way that's really gonna hurt. And the other hand, like he's trying to reach for his gun, and then every once in a while, like he'd do something else that would hurt. And as we're getting through that, it's just getting more and more escalated. And my mom is just watching it, smiling at the door. And that's where like so much is happening. Like, Rosa is crying, and then she goes into shock. He's on top of me. My mom's just there smiling, and I'm just screaming and crying for help and to get off of me. And why won't you do anything? Why won't you stop him? And that went on for more than 13 minutes. Because by the time we got into the house, by the time we went up to the broom, and then by the time we had actually gone back down the stairs, it had been over 45 minutes. And that was insane. And the whole reason that like he finally stopped is because I eventually like I was in so much shock, and I don't know if it was from the pain or what was happening, but I couldn't move. And I didn't pass out, but he finally just let go. I don't remember if Rosa had said something or my mom had said something, but eventually he finally just let go. And as soon as that happened, like I rolled off the bed and I was just on the ground crying. I couldn't even move. And he goes right here.
Your dog is being so comforting and so sweet. He's just putting his face right in your face.
He's a good papa. Um, but I'm just laying there and I can't even move. And then Rosa finally comes over to me and she's crying and she's looking at me and she's just trembling because she went from being like 4 feet away from me to like on the ground with me. And she's so scared and she can't figure out like what to do next. Um, I end up like yelling at my mom once I can finally move. And I'm like, why didn't you stop him? Why did you do that? We didn't do anything to you. Like, I was telling you the truth. I wasn't even disrespectful. How could you let him do that in front of Rosa? And she then starts turning and like saying like I'm such a ungrateful daughter. I'm so disrespectful. Like I'm a waste of space. Like the same spiel she always says to make you feel worthless. And I'm like not even understanding what could have possibly gone wrong. But eventually I'm like, we are taking her home now. She is not safe here. That was not okay. She never should have been subjected to that. Like, you are taking her home. So then she grabs Rose's arm and I'm like, you're not taking her without me. I'm watching you take her home. And eventually my dad is like in his room. I don't even want to know what he's doing in that time. Rosa and I both go downstairs with my mom and we get in the car. During that time, Rosa's holding, like, she's in the front seat and she's holding my hand behind, like, putting her hand behind the seat and holding my hand. And I'm just crying because I'm in so much pain. And there's so much adrenaline going through my body that has got to be the only reason I could even walk down the stairs. But the more that I'm like sitting there, the more pain I'm in. She immediately starts texting my boyfriend because we had just been with him and we knew that he was still awake. And she's like, this is what just happened. You need to come get her now. Like, she's not safe. And he ends up beating us to Rosa's house. And as soon as my mom stops the truck, she sees his car. And she's like, you're not getting out of this truck. Like, I'm taking you home for your dad to finish the job. So as soon as she says that, I'm like, oh, I'm done. Like, we were in a truck where like you can't open the back door by yourself. You have to wait until the front door is open. And so I'm like holding the handle over and over and over again. And as soon as Rosa opens the door even a little bit, I swing it open. And as soon as I got out, like collapsed to the ground. I was in so much pain. But I got up and I kind of hobbled and ran over to him while she ran into the house and then immediately called my boyfriend to like hear on speakerphone what was happening. And she was yelling at me and she was saying that like all the same things of like I'm a horrible daughter, a horrible person, super ungrateful, but that like I needed to come back and that there would be consequences and just wait until my dad gets his hands on me. So I go to his car and he unlocks it and he just stands there. Like he doesn't even move from like a few feet in front of the car. He's standing there and she's like walking towards me. But as soon as he just stands there and crosses his arms, she turns around. Because she's like 5'3" and he's 6'4", 210 pounds, and has been doing jujitsu since he was like 8. That was enough intimidation for her to just turn around. By the time my mom got back to the house, my dad was gone. He had no idea where I was, what happened, that I didn't even come back with her. He also had turned off his phone and wasn't answering any of her phone calls. My mom continued to call us and I wouldn't answer anything. My boyfriend and I drove around for a couple hours until eventually we went back to his parents' house. His parents did not like me at all. Like, we're very, very religious, very, very uppity, very, very, like, very, very racist, very, you have to be a certain type of way. Like, I could go on and on about his family dynamics and how they responded to me in a lot of ways. But the big thing was that his mom was adamant, like, we're not going to wake up your dad. We're not going to talk about this until tomorrow morning. Like, clearly she is in pain, so you're not lying about all of it. So you can sleep here on the couch. I'll come wake you guys up in the morning and we'll figure out what happened. In the morning when that happens, I kind of hobble down the stairs to get some ibuprofen because I just wake up because I'm in so much pain. And his mom immediately starts like talking to me about like this Bible lecture about it's not okay to lie and it's not okay to be like a bad child or a bad daughter. And like clearly I'm not telling the truth about what happened last night. And before I even get the words out, I ask her and I'm like, "Did you invite someone over?" She's like, "What do you mean?" And I point out the window. There's a car outside. So she doesn't know who it is, and I don't know who it is, but I have a pretty good idea because it's the same kind of car my biological father drives. She goes and wakes up Ethan's dad, and I go wake up Ethan, who's my ex at the time. My boyfriend at the time, but my ex now. His dad ends up going outside, and it is my biological father. He's passed out asleep in the driver's side with 3 guns in the passenger seat in like my boyfriend's driveway. He has no idea that I'm there. He has no idea that I didn't go home with my mom. Just shows up. Yeah. And then from there on, we his parents ended up calling the cops. His parents were very adamant of like, we don't believe her. We don't know what happened. We don't really like her or her family. We just want her dad to leave. Like he should not be here sleeping in our driveway. He didn't know that she was here, and he also has 3 guns in the passenger seat. Like he needs to go. Well, he was determined he's not going without me because now he knows that I'm in there. So then they end up calling like my biological mom because I'm saying like I will not go with him. Like this is what happened. I'm not going with him. And they're like, well, I don't see any marks on you. Like there's some swelling and you're clearly in pain to the touch, but there's no marks. There's no bruising. We don't believe you.
That's what the cop said.
Because my dad was a retired paramedic. He worked for the Johnston County EMS for almost 20 years. So he knew every cop in town. And they're all like laughing with him, joking with him outside. And he's just being like the most manipulative person you got ever hear. Like just hearing him talk and looking at his smirk, it irks me even to this day. Because then the whole time he's making it out that like me and my boyfriend are liars. And we're like, I'm clearly in pain. These are the things that happens. We literally had a witness. My best friend was there the whole time. He watched everything my mother said, and they just don't believe us. And then because his parents weren't helping anything, they didn't want anything to do with it. They just wanted us gone. They were like, okay, you have to go back with him. And because I kept refusing, they ended up calling my biological mother, and she came. And the only reason, like they asked her over and over and over again. And the only reason that they did not make me go back with him was because she slipped up. So when they were asking her questions, they kept asking her, like, is she safe with him? If she goes back with him, is she safe? She was like, yes. If she goes back with him, is she safe? And like every time they would ask the line of questioning, they would slip that in there. And they would also ask, if she goes home and he's there, is she safe? And she said no. And that's where they eventually asked more questions. And she slipped up just enough, gave them just enough information of explaining if I went back home and he showed up, I would be in danger. So then from there, they said that if I'm in her custody, that's fine, but that she has to take me somewhere else other than our house. She ends up taking me to like a family friend that was kind of like a grandparent figure to me, like grandparents. Well, little did I know until months later, like I ended up staying with them for about a month before having to find my own place. But the only reason that they let me stay there was because they paid them to try and convince me to move home, which is even more wild. Like the whole time they're talking with me every day about like how I'm feeling about everything, if I'm feeling any better, do I need any food, am I in pain? And they act like they genuinely care, and like they're hearing my story and they're like, wow, I believe you, and that's terrible. And like I never would have imagined that, like your parents seem like such good parents. And I'm like, no, like it's really not. Like it's been like this for years, and I've been trying to tell you that, and you just never wanted to hear it. And then I find out months later when like I stayed in contact with her after I had moved away. And she finally tells me, she was like, yeah, the only reason we let you stay with us was because they were paying us. They paid like $4,000 for me to stay with them and convinced me to go back. Absolutely insane. But then from there, like I was not a runaway of the state because my mother had taken me there. So then where I went from there didn't matter. And it was one of those things that with DSS, like I tried to talk to DSS and they wouldn't do
What's
anything.
DSS?
Like Department of Social Security or Social Services.
Oh, okay.
Um, and the way the laws are written in North Carolina, social services only helps you until the age of 16. So like foster care will only take you until you're 16. But you don't have any legal rights as an adult until you're 18. So any kid that's put into the system at 17, you're just screwed. And that was essentially what I did is like I managed to my biological mother helped this other people give me like a lease for a few months. But then that wasn't working out because they were also trying to get me to move back. And so I stayed with them for a little while and then I moved from there. The people I moved in with from there, they did a lot of drugs and were super toxic. I went on a trip to Vegas with some people that I knew, and when I got back, a bunch of my shit was broken and in boxes. And he was like, "Yeah, I want my girlfriend, which is our boss, to move in with us. So you're gonna have to go." And from there, I ended up living in my car for a few months. And then people that like they were my scoutmasters when they knew me, when I was already 18 and kind of like just stopped showing up. Like I was in scouts, but I hadn't gotten my eagle yet. And I just stopped showing up to meetings. They had kind of figured out something was wrong because I'd stopped showing up, but they didn't know what was going on. So they invited me to dinner. They kept inviting themselves over to get like, excuse me, paperwork and things like that. Till eventually I was already living in my car and they asked me over for dinner because like I stopped reaching out, like I kind of pushed them away. And when I was over for dinner, I was like, "So can I do a load of laundry when I come over for dinner?" And then Tanya was like, "Yes, of course, absolutely." And when I'm there, I fall asleep on the kitchen floor waiting for my laundry to be done. And she goes and gets Sean, who like I consider them my foster parents essentially. And she goes and gets him and she's like, "Oh my God, she's asleep. Like she's it's got to be worse than we think if she's asleep on this hard floor right now." And it's like 9 o'clock at night. And so eventually she wakes me up and she starts asking me all these questions. And she's like, "Are you safe?" I was like, "Sort of." She's like, "Do you have somewhere to sleep tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." She's like, had gone outside and like we were talking outside by then. She's like, "Do you have somewhere to sleep other than your car?" I was like, "No." And then from there, like she starts putting it all together. Because when I'm living at the place where like I have a like makeshift lease because I'm not really 18 yet, she had every time she would bring over paperwork, she would bring over like a bag of groceries. And it was one of those things that eventually she brought like deodorant. And then eventually she started asking like, "What snacks do you like? What shampoo do you use?" So she had already noticed like I was struggling because I wasn't living at home. And like she knew enough to keep bringing me stuff, but she never asked questions until at that dinner and she finally figured it out. And so from there, like they already are like, "I know you're living in your car. I know something's not okay. Like, just talk to us." So then I spill like the short version of everything. And her mind is like blown because they never liked my biological parents, but they didn't know it was that bad because I was always just so positive. I was such a big mentor to the younger kids. Like I was always happy-go-lucky, trying to learn, just trying to have fun. And they're like, "I never ever would have expected it." Like you were just also like anytime you were having a bad day, you were just really quiet. So we had no idea you were having a bad day. And then eventually I stayed with them for a few months and became a part of the family. And they really took me in and made me part of the family.
And these are your mentors from your scouts.
Yeah, so he was my scoutmaster, and then the wife was also like the one of the board members for the troop.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, and then it just turned into so much more than that.
Man,
I
what?
feel like there's so many big details that I keep skipping over a lot of stuff, but trying to still get all everything.
No, yeah, I think I always hate asking the origin story of a survivor like yourself because I know it can cause trauma to retell it. Um, so thank you for sharing something so private and vulnerable. Um, I guess for because it's like 1 in 4 women have experienced sexual assault.
Yeah.
So talk to me, to that listener
Yeah.
who is that 1 of 4 and can relate with your story and can be like, oh my God, that part of her story is my story.
hmm
What would you say to her now?
Honestly, that's a lot of why I do what I do. Um, like why I'm in the field that I am, why I'm the person that I am is technically the statistic is 1 in 4 or is what gets reported. But
Mm,
if you think about it, think about all the women that you know who have been through something or have been touched inappropriately or talked to and harassed. And it starts to really make sense that it's not really 1 in 4. That's just what gets reported.
mm,
Even less is what actually gets convicted or even done anything about. Like for example, my biological brother's case, that's a cold case. They ended up finding out that he did it to me and he did it to another kid at his school. But the other person didn't want to testify. So until someone else comes, like reports him and says, like, hey, he did this to me, our cases are cold cases forever.
what
And
does that
that's super, super
case? What
honest.
does that mean?
It means that there is not enough evidence that they actually take it to court. So essentially, the detectives will work with the district attorney to be like, hey, this is the information I have. Is it enough to actually get this guy? And they say yes or no. And if it's yes, then they take it to court and we do the whole thing. If it's no, then they say just wait. Wait until he gets someone else or wait until you find more information.
Dang, cold case. It's like a he said, she said kind of
Yeah,
thing. Oh,
essentially. And
frustrating.
because even like the text messages of like to come upstairs or like him then saying after I had left, like, don't tell anybody or I won't be able to do anything ever. Those are things that in a court of law, lawyers who are for like the defendant,
Hmm.
essentially for the person that did the hurting,
Yeah.
they have got it down to a science. And a he said, she said that even in text messages, they'll argue, well, that was about anything, or you can't prove that he sent those texts. And that's wild because I'm like, but that's evidence, that's proof. Like everything is being corroborated. And like we already know that he's done it to someone else. She just won't testify. And they're like, but every single part of our evidence can be picked apart, even down to the screenshots.
Dang.
And that's insane that like you can just say like, oh, he didn't send them.
So what would you say to
Yeah.
someone who might even be, yeah, like you're saying, like that's just reported 1 in 4. So what would you say to someone like that in your similar
Yeah.
situation?
So that's what I meant to get back to, but forgot is honestly, let me answer that question and then I'll go back to your other question. What I would say to the person that is stuck in that cold case is that focusing on getting justice, focusing on getting the justice that you deserve, that may never ever happen. And if you only focus on getting that, it can eat you alive. I know for almost a year, like it was just a dreadful process that every time the detective would call me, he would just have worse news. And it's hard to really move forward with your life or keep even in the point that you are and not go backwards because you just keep getting this terrible news and you feel like you're never going to get to feel heard. You never have that justice. And so
Wow.
that can really eat away at a person. But to know, like, one, there are other people that have been through it who have survived it, that's comforting. But then on top of it, to know, like, you can still turn it into something good. Like, how I did it is I used all the pain that I went through and I turned it into a survival story for everybody else. Like, my life story became someone else's survival guide. And I do that every day. And honestly, that's the only way that I've gotten through and coped, because if I hadn't have planned my life around that, then I would have never been able to move forward, because it is such a powerful thing that it eats away at you. It makes you feel like if you already come from something that taught you for years that you're nothing, and then the justice system who's supposed to protect you, supposed to give you justice, tells you we can't prove it, we don't believe you, that's earth shattering. Like, how do you have a will to live after that? Like, how do you believe in right and wrong? How do you believe in a justice system? How do you believe in anything? So I had to focus on, well, if no one else is going to save me, how can I save myself? And when thinking about that, I'm like, I like helping other people, making sure that I can get that justice for other people, making sure that I can convince them their life is worth something, their life matters, was what gave me purpose. Because I knew that I may never get that closure. So I started really figuring out what ways I could do that. I wanted to start my own company. I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to do different things and teach different people in different ways. And I just kept helping people along the way. It went from just helping people to going back to school to then teaching and so on and so on. But finding that thing that's going to make you have a purpose, that's going to make that pain mean something, that's the biggest recommendation I can give. Because if you don't give that pain a healthy power over you, it'll destroy you, whether you know it or not. There are people that I've met that they pushed down and they tried to become something, and then years later they have this perfect, beautiful life. Like, have you ever seen that episode in Grey's Anatomy? I'm trying to remember her name, but she's like married to Alex. She's about to marry Alex, and she has this like perfect life, beautiful career. And it's essentially the same thing as she was in the foster care system. She was abandoned as a baby. Her biological dad was a rapist. And then she just has this breakdown and she doesn't understand why. And when she gets down to it, she's pushed away all this trauma for years and years and years, to where when she finally had everything she ever wanted, this beautiful, perfect life, she couldn't be happy about it. She couldn't feel any of it and just had this huge breakdown. That's something that really was eye-opening for me when I saw that, because it really pushed me to like, I don't want that to be me. Like, I want to be able to feel the happiness. I want to enjoy the fun. And that's something that when I talk about this with people, especially other survivors who never got that closure, I talk about like what it's like to really feel the feelings, move through it, and acknowledge it. Because if you don't, like, it's not just something you can read about. Like, they even have it in movies. And that's when they see that and they watch that and they're like, oh my God, you're right. That could happen at any moment. You have no idea. You have no idea what will trigger it either. So that's usually eye-opening enough too for other people that they work with me and they try and figure out what matters to me, what gives my life value, what teaches my mind to replace what I was always taught. I was taught to be nothing. I was taught that I was worthless, and convinces myself, no, I matter. No, I'm doing something that matters.
Wow, that's really powerful. I loved so much of what you said is just amazing. But something really stood out. You said, have that pain mean something.
Yeah.
Can you dive into that a little more? I think that's so powerful. There's so many people in history that have done what you say to turn your pain into something meaningful. So talk more about that.
Yeah, so there are a lot of different ways that I could take that. But for one is within like social work or within juvenile justice, within any type of child advocacy, within working with any type of victim or survivor, like it takes someone who understands, who has seen it, who has felt it, to really know how to best help. And it's like, it's a tricky balance because you have to learn how to genuinely be a survivor who's coming back, bringing water to the fire, and not someone who's still in it, then trying to help other people. because then you're all just drowning.
Right.
But once you get past that point and you know how to come back, you bring a level of perspective that other people can't even grasp. People who haven't felt that degree of pain, haven't survived that type of thing, they can't even fathom it. Like they can imagine, they can empathize, or they can sympathize, but they can't empathize. They can't understand. And it takes someone, like even something simple, like if your friend, their mom dies, but you've had a dog die, you can understand to the degree you can understand. If you don't know what it's like to lose a mom, but you understand loss. You understand having that piece missing from your life. And it's kind of the same thing that when you go into a career that way, you get so desensitized by what you see every day, whether it's a cop or a social worker or even working in a hospital, you get desensitized to it because you see it every day.
Right.
But it takes someone who's been there and goes through it, and especially someone like me who has fallen through the cracks of the justice system to understand how much one missed phone call or not answering one thing on a paperwork or not asking the right question, how that can change the future of someone's life. Like how not sending a referral to this one person can affect their entire future. Like not just if they get closure, but if they get the help they need, if they move forward in life, if they kill themselves because they don't have the support that they need. Like those are things that people don't think about because they're like, oh, well, I just didn't answer an email. I just forgot to make a phone call. But once you've seen it and you understand the impact that even the smallest things have in your role, you understand every single thing you do in that role matters and can change someone's life.
Yeah. So how does one turn pain into meaning?
You find what matters to you. So, like, what matters to me and gave me meaning might not be what gives someone else meaning. So, for one, finding those hobbies that make the pain a little less. So, like, for when it comes to like very famous people, some people make music. We have some of the most amazing art in the world came from people who were going through horrible things or felt like they were an outsider, felt like they were misunderstood. And so when you start to really study that, that becomes really interesting that it doesn't have to just be music or art. It can be um like running can be that thing that makes the pain just a little less. And then you end up becoming an Olympic athlete and then you end up teaching other people. Like it could be the most random little thing, but it's what gives you meaning. It's what gives you purpose, and it's what makes the noise in the back of your head seem a little more bearable, a little quieter. So turning that pain into meaning for me, that became doing like a perfect example is the trauma art therapy that I do. Growing up, especially once I was already 18, I couldn't get something out of my head. So I would take whatever was bothering me, bugging me, sticking with me, and I would think of an image that would represent that. I would put it on paper, and then I would cover the page with words, whether it's song lyrics, quotes, statistics, even Bible verses sometimes. And I would just cover it, the whole page. And one of my most powerful pieces was a picture of the clothes that I was wearing the night that I ran away. And over my eyes, it says, "Help me." And then all over the page, there's statistics and quotes and Bible verses and song lyrics. And it's so powerful because the more you look at it, the more you see. And for someone who has been through it, it gives that person a voice. It makes them feel heard. It makes them feel like, oh my gosh, someone knows the amount of pain I've been through. They know to the depth that they've just like endured. But then for someone who's never experienced that, brings awareness to it. It opens their eyes where, wow, like this is something someone goes through and this is what it looks like. This is how it can affect a person. And it just gives them that extra perspective of like, just because it doesn't personally affect me doesn't mean I shouldn't care. Or that doesn't mean there isn't something I could do about it. So that's where pieces like that are so enjoyable to create because it makes such a difference. And then that's really interesting because then I ended up teaching that to other people. I would meet people who would essentially become kind of like a client, and then I would teach them. There were even times where, like, at a couple of YMCA summer camps, I just volunteered and like I taught a classroom full of kids, like your worst experience, the thing that you keeps you up at night, whatever you can imagine,
Mm-hmm.
give it an image and put it on paper. And then I walk them through that process. And then it was something that it was really cool because then they had the perspective how to walk away from it, how to put it on the page, and it's no longer in your heart. Like, let me find it, but there's a quote that I like, and it says, "You got to resurrect the deep pain within you and give it a place to live that's not within your body. Let it live in art, let it live in writing, let it live in music. Let it be devoured by building brighter connections. Your body is not a coffin for pain to be buried in, so put it somewhere else."
Oh, that's gorgeous. I
And
love
that's
that.
that's exactly what I think when I would teach that class.
That's beautiful. That's
Mhm.
so beautiful. I love the concept of pain. I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, we could talk about pain like in a whole other episode. But I think that the the design of the body is so interesting to that we're so receptive. Like it's such a, our bodies are so sensitive to it, and they're just, it's really just signals, right? Signals that something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Or that there's some kind of strain. And the other side of pain, not the pain that you've experienced, of course, but like there's another side of pain when used appropriately can actually like grow us into these amazing human beings. Like David Goggins, I don't know if you've heard of him.
Mhm.
He's a self-help person. You would love him. It's called Don't Hurt Me or Can't Hurt Me by
Okay.
David Goggins. Horrible upbringing as well, but he uses pain to change his life. He was like 100 and something pounds and lost it in 6 months to join the Navy. Yeah, like he was so insanely dedicated, and he was like, this is my thing. This is my purpose now. So like you're saying, like developing this purpose. And he says one of his favorite quotes is that seek pain daily, like, but seek your own pain, your
Yeah.
pain, like going
It's
to
like challenge by choice, is like finding what keeps you up at night. What's that thing that drives you and haunts you a little bit?
yeah, it's
Channel it.
that discomfort, right? So it's like going to the gym is uncomfortable, it's painful, but it's like it's a good pain, right?
Mhm.
It's a pain that's going to make you stronger. And I've developed a really good relationship with pain. There was just a quick story. I was in the ER like 2 months, 2 weeks ago, and
Or-
it was so interesting. They were like, "Oh, let's give her morphine." And I was like, "Wait, no, no, no. Like, I want to feel the pain so that I could tell you guys where it is and how intense." And like, they were like looking at me so weird. They were like, "You need this morphine." And I was like, "No, no, like I really, I'm okay with pain."
Yeah.
It was insane. It was like contraction level pain.
Mhm.
But but I have developed this relationship with it that I know it serves a purpose, and
Yeah.
I want the doctors and communicate what's happening in my body to them.
Yeah. Because your
And
body's telling you, you just have to listen.
yeah, and it's so interesting how much we avoid pain, and we're just like, no, no pain, no pain. But I really think that there's just no growth when there's no pain
Mhm.
in, the pain that I'm talking about, not the
Yeah.
pain I'm talking about. But I love how you've come from what you came from, and now you're building it to for a purpose. And you said you're the director of Boys and Girls Club Home.
No, I a behavioral specialist for
Oh,
boys and girls.
behavioral specialist. And you teach the family model. Tell
The
tell us
teaching
about that.
model. Yeah. So the teaching family model is used to teach, at least at the school that we go to, it's used to teach different skills. So essentially, when you're having behaviors in the charter school, there are kids that are going through horrible things, much less like I remember in middle school. Middle school was rough. And that's just without anything I was going through at home.
Right.
And it's the same thing with these kids. It's like they're just learning how to be a young adult. They're learning how to process life and go through hormones and puberty. And then on top of it, they've been handed a really tough deck. And then
Right.
their whole life, oftentimes, teachers are their first line of like enemies, the first people that are against them, instead of being the first line of defense. We have one student that he just had behavior so many times, he was so misunderstood that he spent a year locked away in ISS and they wouldn't teach him anything. Like he's
Wait,
behind in
what's
his grades
ISS?
because he was in school suspension.
In school suspension. Oh,
It's just like locked away in a room by himself. Most of the times they'd have the lights off and they just wouldn't teach him anything.
the
And that's
school?
hmm
My
like
God.
a school in North Carolina.
That's
And that's one of those things is like, okay, well now he's back in school, but they're expecting him to be at his age level, but you don't know what he's been through. You don't understand why he's behind. Instead of calling him stupid, figure out why he's behind. Okay. He's always gets mad when he has to go to math class because he doesn't understand it. He's behind and it doesn't make sense to him. So then kids make fun of him or your teacher makes you feel inferior. So yeah, he's gonna tear up a classroom or cuss out the teacher. Those are
right.
things that it's my job to understand the kid and advocate for the kid, but also to protect the teachers. So a lot of my role is crisis de-escalation, intervention, and prevention. So when something extreme happens, I'm supposed to calm it down and then figure out what even happened. I'm supposed to intervene in situations as they're happening so that it doesn't get to that point. And then I'm also supposed to try and know the kids to the degree that I can try and prevent them. So, like, what I really try to teach my kids is instead of going all day with all these terrible things happening, you have to come to me. You don't have to tell me what's wrong, but when it's happening, or first thing when you get to school, tell me where you're at. Tell me you're having a bad day. You don't even have to tell me the emotion you're having, whether it's sad, mad, frustrated, whatever. Feeling alone, feeling whatever. Like, you just have to tell me you're having a day. That way I know to come check on you. I know that you're going to need a little extra space. You might need to come to my office to go to the mindfulness room. You might need just some extra support.
That is so cool. So this service that you offer is at a school, or is
Mhm.
it a, because my brother used to volunteer at Boys and Girls Club.
Mhm.
Is that totally different from what
Very,
you're
very different.
okay, okay.
So, I work for the Boys and Girls Homes of North Carolina in Lake Waccamaw. On campus, there are two sections. There's the residential side, which are the group homes on campus, and then there's the educational side, which is the charter school that is there. I'm a behavioral specialist for the charter school. So essentially, I have my own office and it's presented like it's a school counselor, but it's not really that. That's like the best way to explain it from an educational standpoint is essentially I'm like an in-school therapist, but then I
Yeah.
have so much else to do.
So
From
are
within that, Mhm.
these, sorry to interrupt you. So are these kids, are the kids that go to this charter school all have behavioral issues? Is that why they go there? Or it's just a
most
neutral school?
most all of them. So
Oh,
100% of our students are in DSS custody, so the Department of Social Services custody. They're
okay.
pretty much all foster kids.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
About
they've experienced so much trauma already.
they've experienced trauma in some degree. Every single kid has experienced trauma in some way, shape, or form,
Right.
but some have experienced more than others. So, like some, they could be there because they were orphaned really young because their parents died in a car accident. They
Yeah.
don't even have to have been in that car accident, but they still experience the trauma of losing their parents and becoming orphaned and getting thrown into the foster care system. Versus we have other students that have been abused in every way, shape, and form, been human trafficked, had to run away, had babies at 14. Like we have the polar opposite side of that spectrum as well. And that's all in the same classroom.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow. So your role there is what they think you are, is this is a counselor, but you're actually this superhero that's like helping them understand, just let me know you're having a bad day and then I'm going to check in on you. That's kind of the relationship you build with them.
Yeah, so the way that the kids usually see our role, because there's me and one other person in the role, is essentially have two sides. We either have the enforcement side, like you're bringing vapes to school and then we have to find it and figure out why and where you put it and how you're getting it, and then we have to suspend you. So there's that side that they see and they obviously don't like. And then we have the side of, okay, you're having behaviors. So then we have to come into the class, take you out, calm you down, figure out what happened, and then teach to that behavior. Because instead of teaching you what is causing the behavior, we're going to teach to the behavior that's happening. And then as we're trying to teach you, we're going to teach the other behaviors. So some of our go-to ones are like teaching how to follow directions, accepting no for an answer, accepting feedback, respect for others, respect for self, and so on and so on. There's like over 30 different skills that we can teach to. But those are things that, like, in that moment, instead of teaching you to sit down and be quiet in the classroom, we're going to teach you not to cuss out the teachers, how to accept no for an answer when you keep asking to go to the bathroom instead of just doing your test that you're feeling stressed about, or so on and so on. Because by the time we get involved, it's escalated to a point that we don't even care what got you upset in the first place. Our job is to de-escalate you, calm you down, find out what happened, and then teach how to prevent that from happening in the future. So what I like to do is not only figure out what happened and then eventually come back around to address how to make that less triggering, but how to not get triggered in the first place. So breathing exercises, knowing when to ask for help, know if this teacher always makes you mad because they just don't understand, know how to say, hey, miss, whatever, I'm having a bad day. Can I just talk to Miss Liv? Or, hey, I need to talk to Miss V, or hey, can I go to Miss V's office? Or whatever. Like, instead of fighting with a kid or cussing out a teacher, knowing when to ask for me. Instead of me having to come get you from class, pull you out, possibly suspend you or put you in ISS because you're having such large behaviors like cussing someone out or fighting with someone. You say, I need help. You are not the person to give it to me. Just call this person.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's even just like for people who haven't gone through those experiences in childhood, I think that's such an important skill that isn't taught, is how to communicate your needs. Because, and even in romantic relationships, it's a deep dive I'm going into right now, is that it's so hard to ask for that. Because sometimes
Yeah,
I
girl.
think that we, at least I think there's a parenting shift, but our generation of parents had this like behavioralist approach to parenting where it's like outcomes, 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 don't care about your emotions. You must
Yep.
behave in this way.
Mhm.
And now I love this, I know it gets a bad rap, but this gentle parenting, healthy parenting, punishment-free parenting, I think it's awesome because it's really teaching kids how to feel their emotions and need and want. And it's like, you're probably like really upset right now. Are you hungry? Do you need space? Do you need a blanket? Right? Like it's like starting super young, but this is something that just hasn't been taught to us.
Oh, absolutely.
Those,
And that's where, on top of that, like, that's already something that has been taught to multiple generations. But then to kids who have experienced trauma, especially to the degrees that they have, they've never ever been told that their voice matters or their feelings matter or that it's okay to feel those big emotions. We just have to learn how to do it in a healthier way.
right,
Like,
right.
I ended up having a student even last week that he has never had an adult in his life ever say, I'm proud of you, or that I told him, I don't think you are a bad kid. I just think you are making choices that are negatively impacting your future. He broke down in tears because he has only ever heard he's a bad kid, he's a waste of space, he doesn't belong in this type of school. And I like stopped him. I was like, you are not a bad kid, you're not a bad person.
Yeah.
You have been through bad things and you are handling it in a way that is negatively impacting your future. But that
Wow.
does not make you a bad person.
Yeah.
Have a good heart. You are still learning. You are still a kid. You still
Right.
have the grace and the time. Like, that is time and grace that I can give to you if you work with me, if you let me help you, if you let me teach you. I can teach you how to do the being a good person, like in quotations marks. Like I can teach
Right.
you how to do those things to survive in society. But
Be the
you have
person
to
you want to
learn.
be.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
have to learn how to be comfortable in your own skin and accept
Yes.
that it doesn't matter if everybody's saying you're a bad kid. You
Yeah.
have to believe that you're not a bad kid is step number one. Then once
Mm,
you understand that and you hear me, you know that I'm a trusted adult who's not going anywhere,
yeah.
then we can work somewhere. Then we can start learning better coping mechanisms. Then we can unlearn some of those survival skills. Then we can start to be more in tune with our emotions by identifying them, understanding, well, when I feel this type of way in my body, this means I'm developing this emotion, which is then going to cause this type of reaction. Like it's a process. But the
Right.
first thing I need you to do is understand that I believe in you and I don't think you're a bad kid.
Oh, that's so reassuring. They're so lucky to have you. You can
I try, girl. It is hard.
Yeah, I bet their exterior is rough.
Hmm.
And they're just these little kiddos just screaming for love and an affection and to be
What I've
loved. All those
what I've noticed are the kids that are the hardest to love are the ones that need the love the most.
Yeah, I can see that so much. And like we're learning so much about trauma now with Gabor Mate and all his colleagues. And I think that it's always goes back to connection.
Mhm.
Like it goes down to connection. And, I like confession moment. I mean, being a parent, it's so hard because the number one thing is you have to regulate yourself.
Yeah.
And the moments where I was rough with my son were moments I was so dysregulated. I
Mhm.
was hungry. I didn't shower. I didn't sleep. I it's crazy. And it's like, you know what? Those moments where you're not regulated, you just need to stop and take care of your needs and put on a TV show or something. Cause like you have to regulate yourself as a parent because you're gonna show up really crappy. And then you can help your kid. But like it's it's a process. It is a process being a parent and um it's like reparenting yourself as well.
And
Cause
that's definitely the hardest part, especially if your parents never taught you that. Learning how to even when you're 18 and you're learning for the first time how to give yourself a bedtime, that's crazy difficult. But then trying to enforce something with your kids that you were never taught yourself, oh my word.
yeah, it's I one of my favorite authors, his name's Joe Dispenza. He's like this self-healing and guru guy, and he's all into mindfulness and really healing your body through meditation. And he says the greatest enlightenment you can experience is becoming a parent.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, thousandfold.
It's so eye-opening. And it's also really interesting that I read somewhere when I was looking into trauma, and it talks about the things in your child that trigger you the most are the unhealed parts of you that never got to be like you never got to be yourself in that way. It's like kids who were super ADHD and just loud and all over the place. When you have kids who are just that same way, that can be very triggering because then you're like, no, you have to be quiet. The way that you were taught to shut down everything, that's then overstimulating for you because you were never allowed to embrace that. And
Yeah,
that's really interesting to then step back too, because then parents who they're like, oh, I didn't have a bad childhood, but then parenting is really hard, then you're like, oh, these are all the parts of me that I never got to embrace.
right.
I never learned how to handle or be around.
Yeah, 1000%. It's crazy how, at least in my experience as parenting, how much you can just go from like 0 to 10. And it's like, where did this come from? I was chill.
Yeah.
I was chill as a bird. I'm just chilling. And then all of a sudden, this rage just kicked in. Like, where did that come from? And I'm regulated. Like, I can tell you I'm regulated. I'm fine. Ate, slept, but then I went like from 0 to 10 for something really stupid. What? And it's weird. So I sense that. And like you said earlier, the body remembers everything. Like, yes. And it's like I'm like barely catching up to it. I'm like, where did that rage come from? Like that was crazy. And you're right. Yeah, it's being mindful is so like, whoa, I noticed something in me that wants to really like scream or like hit or lash out in some way. How do we calm down? It's like I need to separate myself because I don't know what's happening in my body. It's wild. It is wild.
Mm-hmm. But what's really beautiful is that you acknowledge it and study it and understand it. Because there's a lot of people that never get to that point. Even just the acknowledging it and like wanting to understand it or wanting to dissect it, that's so rare and it's really, really beautiful. But then what I kind of teach my kids to do is like, okay, it's okay to feel those things, but how do we channel it in a healthy way? So, like, a great example of that is like when they come to my office. My office is not only my office, but it is also the mindfulness room. So, I have tons of different therapy techniques at a moment's notice. And then it's also like one wall of like ISS desks. And a great example is that, like, okay, you want to hit something or throw something. Instead of throwing something at a person, you can throw these dog toys at a wall as hard as you can for as long as you need. You can be angry. That's totally fine. You can throw things. But the difference between throwing a stapler at someone's head and throwing a dog toy at a wall, the dog toy, it's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to break anything. And you're not around anybody else. So you can learn how to express that healthy aggression until we can learn how to identify it and control it and channel it.
I
So
love that.
trying
Yeah.
to meet them where they're at. It's like, it doesn't mean you can't feel those things. It doesn't mean you can't explode. It just means we need to do it a different way. But
Yes.
another thing is like, you feel like you need to run away. You feel like you can't get away from here fast enough. You feel trapped. We can go for a run. But I have two rules. One, you have to tell me we're going. You can't just run away from school. But then two, if I'm in heels, you better let me change my shoes.
You're so
And like
cute.
they know. And that's the thing. It's like even about not even a month ago, I had a kid who was just so pissed that she walked off. Couple kids, her sister, a teacher tried to convince her, like, don't do it, don't do it. Walked off. I ended up walking on the highway with her for 2 miles before she ever decided to turn around. And this is like at
Wow.
the end of the school day, like I'm already clocked out.
Mm. Oh my
We're
God.
just walking on the highway. And the whole time I'm like, okay, if we're walking, I have two questions. You gotta tell me how far we're walking and why we're walking. You don't have to tell me what's wrong, but you gotta tell me why we're this mad that we're walking on the highway. Like there are cars going past us.
Wow. Oh my God.
So
On the highway.
yeah, like on the highway, on the highway.
That's
Like
so
I'm so
scary.
willing to meet you where you're at, but you
Yeah.
also gotta meet me you gotta meet me a little bit because I gotta know what I'm working with. Like I gotta know,
Yeah.
are you angry? Are you sad? Are you feeling left out? Are you feeling abandoned? Like I need to know the core feeling so I at least know what angle I'm going at. Am I asking you questions? Am I just moving you through it? Am I teaching you something?
Mm-hmm. That's
Because then
amazing.
eventually I want you to get to the point that you're going to come to me and say, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is the feeling I'm feeling in my body." So like you're saying, "I need to escape. I need to run away from here." And I say, "Okay, let's go for a walk." And then we walk until you're ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
Or I need to throw something. I need to hit someone. Okay, go throw the dog toys. And then eventually you're like able to come to me. You're saying, "I'm feeling really angry. I need to either do something about it or I need to talk about it." So like
Yeah.
meeting them where they're at and then slowly going backwards to where eventually they can come to me before they're feeling it, before they're getting triggered. Once they're feeling it and they're like, okay, Miss Liv is going to have the answer. Miss V, she's going to know how to handle it. Or if it's something that's triggering them or making them mad, I can come tell her, Miss V is going to handle it. It's out of my hands. I don't need to handle it myself because I trust that she's going to do it. She's going to take care of it.
Wow. So what are the in the mindfulness room, what else do you have besides like the dog toy? I'm so
Yeah.
curious what's in the mindful room. Like,
So
what
we have
else?
a ton. Let's see. There's different lights in the room. So like I'll turn off the lights and we'll do it the color that they want, whether it's like blue or red light therapy. There's this like machine that has water in it. It has bubbles and lights. That's also really relaxing. As some kids just need to like, they're feeling overstimulated and they just need to like watch the bubbles go up and down. Kind of like watching the raindrops fall. That's
Right.
really relaxing for people. We also have a couch and all the pillows have like the 5 finger technique of like name something you can touch, name something you can smell. We also have the feelings wheel pillow where
What does
you can
that do
identify.
really quick? What does that do by naming something with the five senses?
Yes.
What is that doing?
So it's a grounding technique. So it teaches you to be more aware of your surroundings to the point that it brings you back to the present moment and also feeling more in tune with your body. Because then you're focusing on those 5 senses that it goes from being this external thing that's out of control to bring you to the present moment in your body, which
Mm.
then naturally de-escalates you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, Then there's also like the feelings wheel where they learn, okay, I don't know what I'm feeling, but if I look at this feelings wheel, this is what I'm kind of feeling, but then go down, this is the core feeling I'm actually feeling, and learning how to identify that. Uh,
Mm.
There's also a massage chair in there.
Oh, yes.
There's a jumping trampoline, so like you just need to jump it out.
Like a rebounder?
hmm
Oh, fun.
We've got the dog toys. I've got balloons. So like if the dog toys aren't enough, I have them. There's two different things you can do with the balloons. You can have them blow it up, and the breathing ends up being a de-escalation thing because it's regulating your breathing by blowing it as hard as you can until you just can't. Like they'll start really angry and they won't ever hyperventilate because they're slowly having to take deeper breaths. They're slowly having to calm their breathing down because they're trying to blow up this balloon. Another thing is then if you blow up the balloon, popping it. Like that can be very satisfying for someone who's like very, very angry and just needs to like break something.
Yeah.
Go pop your balloon. Go for it. Just let me cover my ears.
Right, right.
And then I'm trying to think what else. We've got a ton of like different self-help books or like even there are a couple books in there from American Girl Doll where it's like the Understanding My Body book. And that's also really interesting for kids. It's like sometimes they just need quiet. So I'll like turn the lights off, they'll come and sit in my room and I'll just do something at my desk. Um, the other thing is like I have a smart board in my room, which it doesn't work right now. I need a new one. But then once I do, it'll have YouTube has these little videos where it's like a 4D aquarium. So then you see all the fish with piano music in the background. And I do that at home for my dogs because one of my dogs is very fearful and like he can have anxiety sometimes. So when I leave, I'll turn that on so then they don't always notice things going on outside because they hear the music. And that's something I want to do for my kids too, is like the sound therapy can be helpful, but then also having like the aquarium, all the animals in the water is also super relaxing.
That's so cool.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, girl, I could talk to you for hours. Oh my God,
Yes.
we're almost hitting hour two. But so what is like the last bit of words of comfort or reassurance for someone who might have gone through an experience like this? What are resources available? What would you say, like you mentioned that piece of like not seeking justice
Yeah.
that won't serve you, that finding the pain, giving them purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
What is another way or maybe like something that can help them heal? What's a last parting word that you could give them?
Yeah. So whether you find justice or not, you'll still have that ache. You'll still have that anguish. You'll still have all those deep, deep feelings. Because whether you get the justice or not, it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't take it away. It doesn't make it okay. So finding people in your life who can help you identify what you need. So whether it's finding a way to move forward, finding a way to give you purpose, finding a way to heal and process it, that's going to be the first step. In a lot of ways that like I recommend that is finding different types of therapists. Like, not everybody likes the idea of seeing a therapist, but there's different kinds. There's experiential therapy, which is what I specialize in. That's going to therapy through art or dance or even through rock climbing. But then there's other types of therapy like talk therapy. For a lot of people who have experienced trauma, talk therapy doesn't do shit. It just doesn't work for people because they're not actually able to identify or process it. Like, it's so deep rooted that they often have to do other therapies either with it or before they can actually get to the point that they can handle talk therapy. Because even on top of that, like, talk therapy can be very re-traumatizing for people. So you have to get to that point that you're ready for it. So identifying if you want to go the therapy route, what kind of therapy is going to work best for you? And then being adamant that you've got to wait until you find that therapist. If you're with someone who's not the right person, you're not going to get the help that you need. Like, even myself, I've tried multiple different therapists, but there's only one that I genuinely connected with that actually made progress with. Everyone else just wasn't the right person. They couldn't understand, or they'd never worked with someone who had been through as much as I'd been through. They couldn't fathom it, so they didn't know how to help it. So you have to find someone who can meet you where you're at. And then also, one thing I highly recommend, especially to any male identifying people who are looking for a therapist, I recommend finding someone that is in a place that you want to be. So like when I was with my ex and he was trying to find a therapist, my greatest advice was finding another person like you who is where you wanted to be. So in his case, finding a male who speaks Spanish, who is emotionally intelligent, who is what you consider to be a real man, what you look up to.
Like a mentor.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
and
wow.
then
That's
let him help you, because you don't want to take advice from someone you would never want to be. You would never want to, someone you don't respect the life that they live.
Mm.
So you have to find someone that you can look up to, whether they've been through what you've been through and they're now out of it or not. You still have to find someone that you're like, okay, a better life does exist, an easier life does exist. It is attainable because this person has done it. Or they understand, they've been to the depths that I've been through, even if it's for different reasons, and they now have a beautiful, happy, sustainable life.
That's gorgeous. That's really good parting words. Olivia, this was amazing. Thank you so much. How can people connect with you or reach out to you if they have questions? Tell us the deets.
They can always reach out to you and you can get them in touch with me depending on what they need. But then I also have an art account that I would highly recommend taking a look at. And that I post a lot of stuff from like the experiential stuff that I do. But then I also it's a public account, so you can reach out to me and ask questions and things like that. It's called The Art of Healing. And from there, it has everything. Like, it has the jewelry that I make, the art therapy that I do, the dance movement therapy, and me just having fun. But then that's also a good place to say, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what I need. Do you have recommendations? Do you have books that you like? Do you have a therapist you could recommend? Have you been through something like this and like, I have a lot of people that will reach out and they're just like, I am going through this horrible thing and I can't see a way out. Do you just have 20 minutes to talk to me on the phone? Or things like that. So like, you would be surprised the number of people that have just reached out to me and they're just like, this is where I'm at. Do you see any way out? Do you see any solutions? Do you have any words of wisdom? So reaching out through there is a really good way to get in touch with me initially. And then,
So your Instagram handle is The Art of Healing?
yep. So it's actually underscore the period art period of period healing underscore.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely link that in the show notes so that people can follow your work and all that you're doing.
Which I'm not very active on it, but I try.
Yeah, I get it. Well, Olivia, thank you again. This was amazing. I cannot wait to do the re-listen.
Anytime.
All right, before you go, I need you to hear this. You don't need to keep white knuckling your way through life. You don't need to figure it out on your own. You deserve support. You deserve strategy. You deserve to feel like yourself again. And that's exactly why I'm offering you a complimentary free 30-minute coaching session. No strings, no pressure, just real conversation, real breakthroughs, and a real chance to feel lighter, clearer, and way more in control. If you've been listening and nodding your head thinking, yes, that's me, then this is the moment to stop thinking and start doing. Click the link in the show notes and schedule your free session right now. Right now, not later, not when you have time, right this moment, because you're worth showing up for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram at healing_with_Haley. I am here for you, but don't overthink it. What you're going to do in this free session is we're going to unpack any negative belief systems, build momentum with clear strategies, leave you feeling lighter, calmer, more confident, more grounded. These are the emotions you're going to feel after a session with me. Don't overthink it. The life you want starts with one decision. This could be the one thing that changes everything for you this year. Let's do this.